we will be opening a Throne of Eldraine Gift Edition bundle. So, let's get started. You can hear it sliding around in there. I've been very excited to open this since I got it. I just haven't had time. Work has kept me very busy. But I'm mostly just thankful to still have a job right now. So, can't really complain. Throne of Eldraine. I like the fairy tale setting a lot. We got one of these boxes that is just a little bit the wrong size to fit anything. I set that over there. Little security tag. We got a big old poster of someone and some birds. Got some sticky stuff. This is really cool. Don't really know why, but they gave a little plastic, not plastic, a little poster of Fervent Champion and Creepy Child. Here's the box. I really like this art. I like the sword that she's holding. It's a very cool looking sword. Same thing on the other side. And we got a whole mess of boosters. A oversized spin down life counter. Another box that is just slightly the wrong size. I like these boxes a lot. So, we got a collector booster, which we will open last, as well as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 regular boosters, 2 little how to play / advertisements, and 2 sets of lands and a promo. So let's start opening things. We start with Piper of the Swarm. 1 and a black for a 1/3 human warlock creature. Rats you control have menace. Haha, pay 1 and a black and tap. Create a 1/1 black rat creature token. Pay 2 and 2 black and tap. Sacrifice 3 rats. Gain control of target creature. If it has ears, it will dance to my tune. These are some really nice looking lands, actually. I like the fairy theme going on with the little lights everywhere. Ooh, I really like this one. This looks like the same thing, but not foil. Yeah. Just not foil. Those can sit there. I'll pile these here, and we'll get cracking. Did a pretty poor job of this. But we're in. We start with Bartered Cow, 3 and a white. For a 3/3 ox creature. When Bartered Cow dies, or when you discard it, create a food token. It's an artifact with 2 and tap. Pay 2 and tap. Sacrifice this artifact, you gain 3 life. At the market, no one heeded Hilda's frantic mooing. The Fey curse was turning out even worse than she had feared. Moonlit Scavengers, 5 and a blue for a 4/5 merfolk rogue creature. When Moonlit Scavengers enters the battlefield, if you control an artifact or enchantment, return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. They comb the shallows of Lochmere for relics of a bygone era, and if they happen upon a lone traveler, all the better. Barge In. Costs a red. Instant. Target attacking creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Each attacking non-human creature gains trample until end of turn. The giant had heard of locks, but he had yet to discover of a door he couldn't open. Rosethorn Halberd. Costs a green. Equipment artifact. When Rosethorn Halberd enters the battlefield, attach it to target non-human creature you control. Equipped creature gets +2/+1. Equip 5. Pay 5 and attach to target creature you control. Equip only as a sorcery. Tempting Witch. 2 and a black for a 1/3 human warlock creature. When Tempting Witch enters the battlefield, create a food token. It's an artifact with pay 2 and tap, and sacrifice this artifact. You gain 3 life. Pay 2 and sacrifice a food. Target player loses 3 life. Murder clad in crimson beauty. An end to life and love and duty. Barrow Witch Incantation. Brimstone Trebuchet. 2 and a red for a 1/3 wall artifact creature with Defender and Reach. Tap. Brimstone Trebuchet deals 1 damage to each opponent. Whenever a knight enters the battlefield under your control, untap Brimstone Trebuchet. Golden Egg. Costs 2 for a food artifact. When Golden Egg enters the battlefield, draw a card. Pay 1 and tap. Sacrifice Golden Egg. Add 1 mana of any color. Pay 2 and tap. Sacrifice Golden Egg. You gain 3 life. Tall as a beanstalk. 3 and a green for an aura enchantment. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3 and has reach, and is a giant in addition to its other types. He realized a bit late that he was supposed to plant the magic beans. Vantress Paladin. Costs 3 and a blue for a 2/2 human knight creature with flying and adamant. If at least 3 blue mana was spent to cast this spell, Vantress Paladin enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Someone knows where the king is. They can't expect to keep it a secret from us. Idyllic Grange. Plains land. Tapped at a white. Idyllic Grange enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more other plains. When Idyllic Grange enters the battlefield untapped, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Every hero's journey starts somewhere. Animating Fairy. 2 and a blue for a 2/2 fairy creature with an adventure. Bring to life 2 and a blue for an adventure sorcery. Target non-creature artifact you control becomes a 0/0 artifact creature. Put 4 +1/+1 counters on it. It also has the creature has flying. A true puppet master has no need for strings. Inquisitive Puppet. Costs 1. It's a 0/2 construct artifact creature. When Inquisitive Puppet enters the battlefield, scry 1. Exile Inquisitive Puppet. Create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Just a human, not a soldier. The strings were gone, but he still felt the pull of invisible forces tugging at his mind. Beyond the Great Henge. Beanstalk Giant. Costs 6 and a green for a star giant creature. Beanstalk Giant's power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. It also has an adventure, Fertile Footsteps, 2 and a green for a sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Then exile this card. You may cast the creature later from exile. And are rare. Gadwick the Wizened. Costs X and 3 blue for a 3/3 legendary human wizard creature. When Gadwick the Wizened enters the battlefield, draw X cards. Whenever you cast a blue spell, tap a non-land permanent an opponent controls. His name is spoken only in whispers, but he hears just the same. We got a Plains, and we got an ad for Magic Arena. The only card, well, I guess there's like 2 cards that I really want to get from this. That is like Embercleave, which that's always nice. But also the Great Henge, which is just a stupid card. Witching Well costs a blue for an artifact. When Witching Well enters the battlefield, scry 2. Look at the top 2 cards of your library, then put any number of them on the bottom of your library and the rest on top in any order. Pay 3. Sacrifice Witching Well. Draw 2 cards. It was built by the Witch of Lochmere. Most of the wishes it grants are its own. 7 dwarves, 1 and a red, for a 2/2 dwarf creature. 7 dwarves gets +1/+1 for each other creature named 7 dwarves you control. A deck can have up to 7 cards named 7 dwarves. The gleam of rubies and my brothers and sisters by my side. What more could I want? Says Brognall the Third. Fairy Guide Mother. Costs a white for a 1/1 fairy creature with flying. No one is so lost that a fairy cannot find them. With an adventure, Gift of the Fae. Costs 1 and a white for a sorcery. Target creature gets +2/+1 and gains flying until end of turn. Then exile this card. You may cast the creature later from exile. Wolf's Quarry. 4 and 2 green for sorcery. Create 3 1/1 green boar creature tokens with. When this creature dies, create a food token. A food token is an artifact with pay 2 and tap. Sacrifice this artifact, you gain 3 life. The monster was gaining on them. Twice it had found them. There was only one place left to hide. Tales of the Fae. Smitten Swordmaster. 1 and a black for a 2/1 human knight creature with lifelink. My quest? Why, to marry a Yara or die trying. With an adventure. Curry Favor. For a single black, it's a sorcery. You gain X life, and each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of knights you control. Golden Egg. Costs 2 for a food artifact. When Golden Egg enters the battlefield, draw a card. Pay 1 and tap. Sacrifice Golden Egg. Add 1 mana of any color. Pay 2 and tap, and sacrifice Golden Egg. You gain 3 life. Idyllic Grange. Plains Land. Tap to add a white. Idyllic Grange enters the battlefield tapped, unless you control 3 or more other plains. When Idyllic Grange enters the battlefield untapped, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Every hero's journey starts somewhere. Garenbrig Paladin. 4 and a green for a 4/4 giant knight creature. With adamant, if at least 3 green mana was spent to cast this spell. Garenbrig Paladin enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Garenbrig Paladin can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Eye Collector. Costs a black for a 1/1 fairy creature with flying. Whenever Eye Collector enters or deals combat damage to a player, each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. Lord Rankle will see you now. All he asks is a small token of tribute. Scalding Cauldron. Costs 1. It's an artifact. Pay 3 and tap, and sacrifice Scalding Cauldron. It deals 3 damage to target creature. It's a witch's trick. This cauldron full of pain. I wouldn't dump it on any but the wicked. Drown in the lock. Costs a blue and a black. Instant. Choose one. Counter target spell with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard. Or destroy target creature with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard. Once and future. Costs 3 and a green. Instant. Return target creature card, or return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Put up to one other target card from your graveyard on top of your library. Exile once and future. Adamant. If at least 3 green mana was spent to cast this spell, instead return those cards to your hand and exile once and future. Cauldron Familiar. Costs a black. For a 1/1 cat creature. When Cauldron Familiar enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Sacrifice a food. Return Cauldron Familiar from your graveyard to the battlefield. Every day the cat returns to kill the same mouse, which sinks again into the cauldron's brew. And our rare Folio of Fancies, 1 and a blue artifact. Players have no maximum hand size. Pay XX and tap. Each player draws X cards. Pay 2 and a blue and tap. Each opponent puts a number of cards equal to the number of cards in their hand from the top of their library into their graveyard. And we got an island. And a 2/2 red and white human cleric creature token with lifelink and haste. Tome Raider, 2 and a blue, for a 1/1 fairy creature with flying. Tome Raider enters the battle. When Tome Raider enters the battlefield, draw a card. Humans are so forgetful. Every page I steal becomes a secret they can't remember. Oh, I keep forgetting that I said I was going to do that. Ogre Errant, 3 and a red for a 3/4 Ogre Knight creature. When Ogre Errant attacks, another target attacking knight gains menace until end of turn. It can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. Knights kept returning from Ogre's Pass wearing nothing but bruises, so they decided to just pretend it was on their side. Lost Legion, 1 and 2 black for a 2/3 Spirit Knight creature. When Lost Legion enters the battlefield, scry 2. Look at the top 2 cards of your library, then put any number of them on the bottom of your library and the rest on top in any order. Even death cannot diminish the persistence of the Knights of Lochflame. Wolf's Quarry, 4 and 2 green for sorcery. Create 3 1/1 green boar creature tokens with, when this creature dies, create a food token. A food token is an artifact with pay 2 and tap. and sacrifice this artifact, you gain 3 life. The monster was gaining on them. Twice it had found them. There was only one place left to hide. Tales of the Fae. Charmed Sleep. 1 and 2 blue. Aura enchantment. Enchant creature. When Charmed Sleep enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature. Enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. Roving Keep. Costs 7 for a 5/7 wall artifact creature with Defender. Pay 7. Roving Keep gets +2/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. It can attack this turn as though it didn't have Defender. It wandered slowly across the landscape, calling out in its lonely voice. But no other castles answered its cries from beyond the Great Henge. Dwarven Mine, Mountain Land. Tap to add a red. Dwarven Mine enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more other mountains. When Dwarven Mine enters the battlefield untapped, create a 1/1 red dwarf creature token. Lochthwain Paladin. 3 and a black for a 3/2 human knight creature with menace. This creature can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. An adamant. If at least 3 black mana was spent to cast this spell, Lochthwain Paladin enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. I will find the king if I have to ride from summer to winter and back again. Ginger Brute. Costs 1. It's a 1/1 food golem artifact creature with haste. Pay 1. Ginger Brute can't be blocked by this turn, except by creatures with haste. Pay 2 and tap. Sacrifice Ginger Brute. You gain 3 life. The unlabeled vial was not vanilla extract after all. Rally for the Throne. 2 and a white for an instant. Create 2 1/1 white human creature tokens. Adamant. If at least 3 white mana was spent to cast this spell, you gain 1 life for each creature you control. If you're as loyal as you claim, now is the time to show it. This is Queen Linden of Ardenvale. Shine Chaser. 1 a white and a blue for a 1/1 fairy creature with flying and vigilance. Shine Chaser gets +1/+1 as long as you control an artifact. Shine Chaser gets +1/+1 as long as you control an enchantment. Cauldron's Gift. 4 and a black sorcery. If at least 3 black mana was spent to cast this spell, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. You may choose a creature card in your graveyard. If you do, return it to the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Opportunistic Dragon. 2 and 2 red for a 4/3 dragon creature with flying. When Opportunistic Dragon enters the battlefield, choose target human or artifact an opponent controls. For as long as Opportunistic Dragon remains on the battlefield, gain control of that permanent. It loses all abilities and it can't attack or block. And we got a foil. Silver Flame Ritual. 3 and a white for a sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Adamant. If at least 3 white mana was spent to cast this spell, creatures you control gain vigilance until end of turn. Tempered by Fire. and united in virtue. The Knights of Ardenvale fight with a single unbreakable will. We got a forest and a food artifact token with pay 2 and tap. Sacrifice this artifact. You gain 3 life. Didn't say please. 1 and 2 blue, instant. Counter target spell. Its controller puts the top 3 cards of their library into their graveyard. If you're in our home, we expect you to mind your manners. Rimrock Knight. 1 and a red for a 3/1 Dwarf Knight creature. Rimrock Knight can't block. Has an adventure. Boulder Rush. Instant. For 1 red. Target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Then exile this card. You may cast the creature later from exile. True Love's Kiss. 2 and a white. Instant. Exile target artifact or enchantment. Draw a card. Be careful, dear. Some people deserve their curses. Witching Well. 1. Costs a blue. Artifact. When Witching Well enters the battlefield, scry 2. Look at the top 2 cards of your library. Then put any number of them on the bottom of your library and the rest on the top, in any order. Pay 3 and a blue. Sacrifice Witching Well. Draw 2 cards. It was built by the Witch of Lochmere. Most of the wishes it grants are its own. Reaper of Night. Costs 5 and 2 black for a 4/5 specter creature. Whenever Reaper of Night attacks, if the defending player has 2 or fewer cards in hand, it gains flying until end of turn. It also has an adventure, Harvest Fear, 3 and a black. Sorcery. Target opponent discards 2 cards. Then exile this card. You may cast the creature later from exile. Blow Your House Down. 2 and a red. Sorcery. Up to 3 target creatures can't block this turn. Destroy any of them that are walls. You think these walls will protect you? My, you have a dim view of the power of the wilds. Says Marwyn, a Barrow Witch. Fierce Witch Stalker. 2 and 2 green. For 4/4 wolf creature with trample. When Fierce Witch Stalker enters the battlefield, create a food token. It's an artifact with pay 2, tap, and sacrifice this artifact. You gain 3 life. While the realm has laws in the wilds, there are ways of balancing power. Jousting Dummy. Costs 2. A 2/1 Scarecrow Knight artifact creature. Pay 3. Jousting Dummy gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Don't let it fool you. Many of us got our first scars from Sir Nobody, says Sir Lane, Knight of Embreth. Scorching Dragonfire. 1 and a red. Instant. Scorching Dragonfire deals 2 to 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that creature or planeswalker would die this turn, exile it instead. As the blaze raced toward her, Sir Amaral closed her eyes and pictured Castle Ardenvale, so her last thoughts would be of home. Surprisingly morbid. Sir Kara the Bold. 3 and 2 red for a 3/3 human knight legendary creature. Whenever Sir Kara the Bold, or an instant or sorcery spell you control, deals damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Tap. Sir Kara deals 1 damage to any target. Duty and honor are reasons enough, but beating you will also be a pleasure. Fireborn Knight costs 4 red-white hybrid mana for a 2/3 human knight creature with double strike. Pay 4 red-white hybrid mana. Fireborn Knight gets +1/+1 until end of turn. He endured the white-hot blaze of the circle and the sweltering heat of the Iron Crag, and he emerged victorious. Edgewall Innkeeper costs a green for a 1/1 human peasant creature. Whenever you cast a creature spell that has an adventure, draw a card. It doesn't need to have gone in the adventure zone first. It doesn't need to have gone on the adventure first. Warmth, safety, a fully stocked larder. You'll find nothing like Edgewall Keep in the wilds. I promise you that. And our rare is Vantress Gargoyle. Costs 1 and a blue for a 5/4 gargoyle artifact creature with flying. Vantress Gargoyle can't attack unless defending player has 7 or more cards in their graveyard. Vantress Gargoyle can't block unless you have 4 or more cards in hand. Tap. Each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. And another foil, Sorcerer's Broom. Costs 2. It's a 2/1 spirit artifact creature. Whenever you sacrifice another permanent, you may pay 3. If you do, create a token that's a copy of Sorcerer's Broom. Reynold wished for an army to sweep away his enemies. The Fey King smiled from beyond the Great Henge. We got a mountain and an On It Adventure card. After an adventure resolves, you can place the exiled card here. You may cast the creature from exile. Ardenvale Paladin, 3 and a white for a 2/5 human knight creature with adamant. If at least 3 white mana was spent to cast this spell, Ardenvale Paladin enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Even when hope is but a small flame, fighting in the night, I will serve the absent king. Mistford River Turtle, 3 and a blue for a 1/5 turtle creature. Whenever Mistford River Turtle attacks, another target attacking non-human creature can't be blocked this turn. The Fae raised the turtle from tiny hatchling. They taught it to whom the fairy and whom they taught it whom to ferry and whom to drown. Thrill of Possibility. 1 and a red for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, discard a card. Draw 2 cards. Remember all the great heroes who were careful and never did anything risky? Me neither, says Sir Kara the Bold. Silver Flame Squire. 1 and a white for a 2/1 human soldier creature. Beacons along borderlands are lit at any incursion from the wilds. With an adventure on alert, 2 and a white for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Untap it. Then exile this card. You may cast this card. You may cast the creature later from exile. Insatiable Appetite. 1 and a green. Instant. You may sacrifice a food. If you do, target creature gets +5/+5 until end of turn. Otherwise, that creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. He ate them out of house and home, and shed, and barn, and flock, and herd. Forever Young. 1 and a black. Sorcery. Put any number of target creature cards from your graveyard on top of your library. Draw a card. Those who say you only live once have never been touched by the cauldron of eternity. Blow your house down. 2 and a red. Sorcery. Up to 3 target creatures can't block this turn. Destroy any of them that are walls. You think these walls will protect you? My, you have a dim view of the power of the wilds, says Marwyn, a barrow witch. Ardenvale Tactician. 1 and 2 white for a 2/3 human knight creature. It has flying. In a castle that prizes loyalty above all, the bond between a knight and a griffin is unmatched. With an adventure, Dizzying Swoop. 1 and a white for an instant. Tap up to 2 target creatures. Then exile this card. You may cast the creature later from exile. Mystic Sanctuary. Island. Land. Tap to add a blue. Mystic Sanctuary enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more other islands. When Mystic Sanctuary enters the battlefield, untapped, you may put an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library. Outmuscle. 3 and a green. Sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then it fights target creature you don't control. Each deals damage equal to its power to the other. Adamant. If at least 3 green mana was spent to cast this spell, the creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. Embereth Shieldbreaker. 1 and a red for a 2/1 human knight creature. My courage is the only shield I need. With an adventure, Battlefield Display for a single red. Sorcery. Destroy target artifact. Then exile this card. You may cast the creature later from exile. Witch's Oven. 1. Costs 1. Artifact. Tap. Sacrifice a creature. Create a food token. If the sacrificed creature's toughness was 4 or greater, create 2 food tokens instead. They're artifacts with pay 2. Tap. Sacrifice this artifact. You gain 3 life. The wafting smells are both scrumptious and suspicious. All that glitters, 1 and a white for an aura enchantment. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. A fairy's glee at her trove quickly fades to contentment, then boredom, then to an urge to steal more. Now rare. It's Castle Lochthwain. Land. Castle Lochthwain enters the battlefield tapped, unless you control a swamp. Tap to add a black. Pay 1 and 2 black and tap. Draw a card, then you lose life equal to the number of cards in your hand. Without Lochthwain's persistence, the realm would stagnate and die. Fittingly, we got a swamp. And a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. Wishful Merfolk, 1 and a blue for a 3/2 Merfolk creature with Defender. Wishful Merfolk loses, let's back up for a second. Pay 1 and a blue. Wishful Merfolk loses Defender and becomes a human until end of turn. She yearned to walk on dry land, so she might take her vengeance there. 7 dwarves, 1 and a red for a 2/2 dwarf creature. 7 dwarves gets +1/+1 for each other creature named 7 dwarves you control. A deck can have up to 7 cards named 7 dwarves. The gleam of rubies and my brothers and sisters by my side. What more could I want? Says Brognall III. Outflank costs a white instant. Outflank deals damage to target attacking or blocking creature equal to the number of creatures you control. With the drum of hooves and a flash of blades, the monster's terrifying roar changed to a cry of fear. Legend of Gilded Knights. Opt costs a blue instant. Scry 1. Look at the top card of your library. You may put that card on the bottom of your library. Draw a card. Sometimes the hardest choice is between 2 wonders, says Gadwig the Wizened. Twin Veil Treefolk, 5 and a green, or a 6/5 Treefolk Druid creature. Right now, you are a feeble stick, but I will help you grow some rings. It has an adventure, Oaken Bloom, 3 and a green, or a sorcery. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature, then exile this card. You may cast the creature later from exile. Smitten Swordmaster, 1 and a black for a 2/1 human knight creature with lifelink. My quest? Why to marry Ayara or die trying? He has an adventure, Curry Favor, costs a black for a sorcery. You gain X life and each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of knights you control. Prophet of the Peak costs 6 for a 5/5 cat artifact creature. When Prophet of the Peak enters the battlefield, scry 2. Look at the top 2 cards of your library, Then put any number of them on the bottom of your library. And the rest on top in any order. It frequently predicts imminent death by devouring. Wicked Guardian costs 3 and a black for a 4/2 noble human creature. When Wicked Guardian enters the battlefield, you may have it deal 2 damage to another creature you control. If you do, draw a card. Some are born to greatness. You were born to scrub greatness's floors. Gingerbread Cabin. Forest Land. Tap to add a green. Gingerbread Cabin enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more other forests. When Gingerbread Cabin enters the battlefield untapped, create a food token. It's an artifact with pay 2, tap, and sacrifice this artifact. You gain 3 life. Steel Gaze Griffin. 4 and a blue for a 2/4 griffin creature with flying. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, Steel Gaze Griffin gets +2/+0 until end of turn. If we didn't guard our secrets, they wouldn't remain secrets for very long. Says Gadwick the Wizened. Foulmire Knight costs a black for a 1/1 zombie knight creature with death touch. Profane Insight is its adventure. Costs 2 and a black for an instant. You draw a card and you lose 1 life. Then exile this card. You may cast the creature later from exile. Mystical Dispute. Costs 2 and a blue for an instant. This spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets a blue spell. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. Poor Lost Mage. Your feet are on land, yet you're in over your head, aren't you? Lock Dragon. Costs 4 blue-red hybrid mana for a 3/2 dragon creature with flying. Whenever Lock Dragon enters the battlefield or attacks, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Despite its ferocity, its favor can be won with a gift of something it's never seen before. And our rare, Emery, Lurker of the Loch. 2 and a blue for a 1/2 Merfolk Wizard legendary creature. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. When Emery, Lurker of the Loch, enters the battlefield, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. Tap, choose target artifact card in your graveyard. You may cast that card this turn. You still pay its costs, timing rules still apply. We got a forest. And a 1/1 green boar creature token with, when this creature dies, create a food token.